Is that a joke?" The murmur rippled among the journalists as a black limousine, gleaming like a cruel laugh, stopped in front of the shelter on Toledo Street. From the back door stepped Eduardo Santamaria with his perfect smile, hair styled as if the wind itself dared not touch it, and a cashmere coat that cost more than the entire shelter building. At his side, two cameras were rolling, one in close-up, the other wide angle. Eduardo was doing charity, but he was also making content. "Today I came to do something special," he said, addressing the group of men wrapped in ragged blankets, dirty wool hats, and defeated eyes. "I want to give the gift of hope." Behind him, a chauffeur lowered a ramp, and down it came a trembling, hunched creature, covered in dried mud and open sores. It was a horse, or at least it had once been. Its coat was patchy, ribs jutting out like broken umbrella spokes, and its gaze so dull it seemed to see nothing at all. Some laughed, others just stared in confusion. "Her name is Luz," Eduardo announced solemnly, "and today she will become the companion of someone who deserves a second chance. Who wants her?" An uncomfortable silence settled, then a hoarse but steady voice rose from the back. "I do." It was Joaquín, gray clothes, weeks-old beard, broken work boots. No one knew where he came from, but he had been sleeping near the canal for months, quiet, asking for nothing. He stepped forward without fear, as the camera zoomed in on him like he was just a background extra. Eduardo gave him that half-smile of his, as if expecting Joaquín to kiss his feet in gratitude. "Are you sure?" he asked. "It's not a luxury car or a beach house. It's just an old horse, and an ugly one, too." Joaquín didn't answer. He simply took the rope gently and looked into the animal's eyes. "Thank you," he said, not to the millionaire, to the horse. "If you believe dignity doesn't need luxury, subscribe and leave a like. This is just the beginning." The walk back to the canal was slow. Luz limped on her right side, wheezing in pain and stopping every 20 steps. But Joaquín never grew impatient. He spoke to her softly as if telling a story, or maybe an apology. No one followed, no applause. Only the sounds of a city that doesn't hear those who don't shine. Joaquín arrived at a half-collapsed shed with a tin roof and dirt floor. He had been living there for the last 3 months, just him, a folded mattress, 2 boxes of clothes, and an old radio that no longer caught any stations. That night, the new tenant was Luz. He cleared out a rotted chair from the corner and dragged a tarp to cover her from the cold. He found a rusty bucket and went to the canal for water, returning with his pants soaked up to the knees. He fed her by the handful. Luz didn't even blink. Rain hammered on the roof like impatient fingers. Joaquín didn't sleep. Sitting beside the horse, he stroked her neck in slow motions. His face was smeared with mud, but his eyes were clean. They looked with respect, as if he saw something others could not. The next morning, the neighborhood kids saw him come out of the shed with Luz. Some laughed, others pointed. The sight was absurd. A homeless man walking a sick horse as if it were a blind dog. "Hey, old man, how much for the meat?" Laughter burst out. Joaquín didn't reply. He walked patiently toward an empty lot by the river. There, he marked a circle on the ground with stones. The first day, they only walked in circles. The horse sweated blood, literally, from the sores, from the cracks. But it didn't collapse. That night, Joaquín spoke to her for hours. "Luz, I didn't choose you, but I saw you. I saw something. I don't know if you saw it too, but we're broken in the same way, I think." The city doesn't stop for 2 ghosts, but they remain there, day after day. Weeks went by. Luz's wounds began to close. Her coat started to grow back, still uneven, but less sorrowful. Joaquín had learned to look for edible herbs, to dry them, to mix them with oats stolen from a nearby farm. He'd put it in a bucket and watch the animal eat without throwing up. Every day they walked farther. Every day the circle grew wider. Every night, Joaquín checked her hooves, washed her legs, whispered softly. And every time a child passed by on the path, they stopped to watch. One of them, Lucas, approached with his bicycle. "Sir," he said timidly, "you ride like the ones in competitions, like the ones that jump." Joaquín didn't answer. "My dad says you look like someone who used to be on TV, a man named Joaquín Marquez." The man turned. For a moment his eyes shone with something more than weariness. "I've been mistaken for many people," he said, and kept walking. But Lucas was right. The video he recorded on his cell phone went viral that same night. A rehabilitated horse, a man training it with perfect movements. The internet exploded. The comments came quickly. Isn't that the one who won in Zaragoza 2007? Joaquín Marquez. I thought he was dead. How did he end up like this? And that horse? That's a jewel. And just like that, without seeking it, without asking for it, Joaquín became news again. The mornings by the riverside changed tone. They were no longer just the slow steps of a homeless man and his wounded horse. Now there were school children who stopped for 5 minutes before class, neighbors pretending to trip just to peek, even a couple of retirees who, without a word, carried carrots hidden in their pockets. Joaquín didn't talk to anyone, only to Luz, but eyes don't lie. And when he looked at the horse, there was no pity anymore, but respect, like someone looking at an equal, like someone who knows they are seeing a survivor. The shed became a sanctuary. Joaquín had hung a battery lamp and, with old planks, built a small roofed space where Luz could sleep without getting wet. He made her a bed of rags and dry grass. With his own hands, he cleaned every corner, repaired a broken window, and placed a cardboard sign. Work zone, do not disturb. No one dared to cross it. One afternoon, while Luz was training with a rope tied to Joaquín's waist, circling, trotting with dignity, a red car stopped a few meters away. A tall man got out, wearing dark glasses and a baseball cap. He approached with slow steps. "Excuse me," he said. "I'm from the press, Channel 7. Could we talk?" Joaquín didn't answer. "I saw the video, the one the kids posted. You two, well, I don't want to sound dramatic, but it's like a movie." Joaquín kept training, not a word. "People are saying you're Joaquín Marquez, the youngest horse trainer to win in Germany, in France, in Argentina, that you disappeared after what happened to your wife." The horse stopped, and so did Joaquín. For a second, the silence was as heavy as a gunshot. "I don't give interviews," he said without turning. "This is not a show, it's recovery." "Just 5 minutes," the reporter insisted. "No cameras, just voice. People need to see things like this. You're an inspiration." Joaquín looked at Luz, then at the sky, and finally he nodded. The report aired a week later. It wasn't long, 3 minutes, a voiceover, images of the shed, of the training sessions, of Joaquín stroking the horse's neck while the rain soaked his shirt. His voice was low, raspy. Sometimes you don't need a miracle, just time, just someone who won't give up on you. For Luz, I was that. And she was that for me. The video went viral within hours. 10,000, then 100,000, then 1,000,000 views. The comments spread like wildfire. "I cried. I won't deny it. This saved my day. I want to see Luz compete. Joaquín is a master, a living legend. Where is this place? I want to go." Eduardo Santamaria was having breakfast on his private terrace when he saw the report. Coffee in one hand, phone in the other. And on the screen, that vagabond, the same man he had humiliated in front of the cameras, now appeared as a hero. "This can't be," he muttered. He watched again, once, twice, 3 times. He recognized the face, the way his hands moved, the firmness with which he held the reins, the absolute control. He shot up, spilling the coffee. "Luis!" he shouted to his assistant. "Get the car ready. We're going to the station, now." An hour later, at the Channel 7 studio, Eduardo stormed in with a furious stride. "Who authorized that report? Who's the producer?" A nervous receptionist tried to calm him. "Mr. Santamaria, it's a public story. We didn't need authorization. And, in fact, there are sponsors interested in—" "I don't care. That horse is mine. That man has no right." "You gave it away," said a voice from behind the desk. "On camera. There's a record. You donated it as an act of charity." Eduardo turned. It was an intern, with oversized glasses and a trembling voice. "Who are you?" "The one who uploaded the video to YouTube. It has 3 million views. Do you want me to delete it?" Eduardo didn't reply. He just left, muttering something that sounded like a promise. That same afternoon, he arrived at the shed in a black SUV. He stepped out with confidence, flanked by 2 men in suits. Joaquín was brushing Luz. He didn't look up when he heard the engine. "I came to talk," Eduardo said, his voice softer than the last time. "Look, this got out of hand. You did incredible work. No one denies that. The horse looks better than ever, but she's mine. Silence. I just want to set things back the way they were. I'll give you whatever you want. 5,000 euros? 10? Joaquín finished brushing and turned. She's not for sale. But I brought her. I found her. You didn't bring a horse. You brought a mockery. I saved you. No, I saved myself. With her. Eduardo looked around. The dirt floor, the worn ropes, the water buckets, the smell of wet grass. And yet, the silence there was stronger than all his money. He turned, got back in the car, and left. In the days that followed, the story escalated. Headlines, from trash to triumph, Luz and Joaquín, a duo that inspires. Millionaire tries to take back horse from homeless ex-trainer, the man who defeated pride with dignity. Joaquín no longer spoke to the press, but he didn't need to. The people had already chosen. And Luz trotted with her head held high. The sky dawned red, as if announcing something. Joaquín noticed it as he opened the shed door. Luz was awake, pawing the ground with one hoof, restless. She was no longer the trembling creature that had arrived weeks earlier. Now she had tense muscles, bright eyes, and that kind of presence animals regain once they remember who they are. Joaquín didn't speak much. He never had. But when he placed the saddle, he did it with surgical precision. When he held the reins, his fingers moved as if playing an invisible melody. And when he gave the command to go, it wasn't as a rider, it was as a partner, because Luz didn't obey. Luz responded. That day, Joaquín took her to the wide field near the railway bridge. There was space there for long gallops. The ground was damp but firm, perfect. First, a slow trot, then a canter. After that, sharp turns, and finally, the jump. He had built 2 obstacles with logs and trash bins. Luz cleared them with an agility that seemed impossible. It wasn't high, it wasn't elegant, but it was clean. And above all, it was free. From a nearby bench, 2 teenagers recorded with their phones. "Did you see that?" one said. "It's him. It really is Joaquín Marquez. And Luz, that horse, they say she was about to die. My cousin at the stables says that jump is championship level." Hours later, the video was already spreading across social media. Titles like Marquez Returns from Hell, Miracle by the Riverside, and The People's Horse flooded TikTok and Instagram. Influencers asked for interviews. Horse feed brands offered donations. But Joaquín didn't appear, didn't answer, didn't accept. In his world, nothing had changed. He still slept in the shed, still prepared oats every morning, still read the same worn-out book before bed. Manual of Natural Horsemanship. The only thing that had changed was the silence. It was no longer peaceful. It was expectant, as if something or someone was about to arrive. And it did. 2 days later, a delegation from the National Equestrian Club knocked on his door. They came without cameras, 3 people, a tall woman in dark glasses, a middle-aged man holding a folder, and a young woman who looked more excited than professional. "Good afternoon," said the woman. "Are you Joaquín Marquez?" He nodded. "We've seen the videos, and we recognized you. Of course you, but also her." She glanced at Luz, who was watching calmly from her corner. "What you've done has no precedent." The man pulled out some papers. "We'd like to invite you to a private event. Just an exhibition, not a competition. An act of inspiration. Young riders will be there, trainers, even a few retired champions. You don't have to say a word. Just ride. Just show." Joaquín thought. He didn't say no, but he didn't say yes either. That night, he sat beside Luz. "I don't know if I should do it," he murmured. "Maybe it's just pride. Maybe I'm falling into the same trap again." The mare snorted, rested her muzzle on his shoulder. Joaquín closed his eyes. "But if we go together, right?" The event was announced as Luz, the story that moved a nation. It was held in an indoor arena north of the city. Not for the masses, just invited guests. But everyone who mattered was there. From the entrance, Joaquín felt the murmur. Some greeted him like an old friend. Others stared at him like a ghost. A little girl approached with a notebook. "Mr. Marquez, can I have your autograph?" He hesitated, then signed. The presentation was simple. Luz walked, trotted, performed basic dressage figures. Nothing extreme, just precision, just connection. But every movement spoke of something deeper: respect, recovery, balance, and at the end, the jump. It wasn't high, but it was perfect. The audience rose to their feet. Joaquin dismounted without a word and vanished once again. Question for you, watching this story. Would you accept an invitation like that, knowing it comes from the same circles that once turned their back on you? Or would you rather stay away, where no one could use you again? The next day, the shed filled with flowers, bouquets, letters, boxes of gourmet oats, vitamins, even colorful blankets embroidered with the name Luz, most without senders. Joaquin didn't know what to do with it all, but Luz, without a doubt, enjoyed the attention. She was no longer just the horse of a homeless man. She was a symbol, proof, that what is broken can be mended, that what is forgotten can return. That day, Joaquin went out earlier than ever. There was a different energy in the air. The sun was soft, but warm. Luz walked with confidence. Her trot was clean, her rhythm steady. They seemed indivisible. In the field, several onlookers were already waiting. They didn't cheer, they didn't applaud, they only watched, with respect. Joaquin raised a hand. "Today we don't train," he said. "Today we gallop." And so they did. 3 full laps of the field. The sound of hooves like a heartbeat. Luz's mane flying like a banner. When they finished, there were no cheers. There was silence and wet eyes. At the back, among the trees, a silhouette watched. Eduardo Santamaria, alone, without cameras. He was dressed casually, white sneakers, cap, dark glasses, but his posture betrayed him. No one else stood like that, as if the world owed him something. He waited until everyone had left. He walked slowly toward the shed. Joaquin saw him, but didn't move. "I didn't come to argue," Eduardo said, "only to understand." Silence. "Why don't you hate me?" Joaquin raised an eyebrow. "What makes you think I don't?" Eduardo laughed, without joy. "Then why haven't you destroyed me in public? You have the power. Everyone supports you." "Because I didn't come back for revenge. I came back to live." Eduardo lowered his head. "And her?" He pointed at Luz. "What will you do with her?" "The same thing I did from the very first day. Listen to her. You could sell her for thousands, tens of thousands, maybe more. She's not for sale. Never, never." That night, Joaquin found a letter under the stable door. "Thank you for giving us back hope. My daughter overcame depression after watching your videos." Another one said, "I'm a retired rider. Your story made me get back in the saddle after years." And another, "I'm like you. I fell. I lost everything. But if you came back, so can I." The next morning brought something unexpected. An official envelope, sealed by the Ministry of Culture and Sports. Inside, an invitation. National recognition for equestrian merit. Category: example of overcoming and dignity. Date: 2 weeks from now. Location: Congress Palace. All expenses covered. Transport, hotel, even formal attire. Joaquin read the letter several times, then left it on the table, expressionless. That afternoon, he trained with Luz in silence. They didn't trot. They didn't jump. They just walked, together, slowly, as if thinking, as if deciding. Near dusk, Lucas, the boy with the bike, appeared with a box. "My dad sent you this," he said. "He says if you're going to that ceremony, you should go like the greats." Inside, a pair of new riding boots, black, shiny, custom-made. Joaquin held them in his hands for a long time. Then he looked at Luz. She snorted, and that was all he needed. The sun was setting. The wind was soft. And for the first time in years, Joaquin smiled. 2 weeks later, the Congress Palace was packed. Politicians, athletes, celebrities, TV cameras. The event was broadcast live on 3 channels. No one was talking about anything else. The vagabond who saved a horse. The legend who rose from the dust. Joaquin and Luz. When Joaquin arrived, every head turned. He wasn't wearing a gala suit, just a dark jacket, white shirt, and the black boots Lucas's father had given him. He walked without hurry, but with firmness. No smile, no false humility. Just presence. At his side, a woman from the committee escorted him to the stage. The audience stood before he said a word. The presenter, with an emotional voice, took the microphone. In a country tired of scandals, lies, and masks, today we honor something simple: the truth. And no one represents it better than Joaquín Marquez. Applause. We don't celebrate him for his past awards, nor for his fame. We celebrate him for not giving up, for doing something few dare to do, looking at a broken living being and seeing a future. More applause. Joaquín stepped onto the stage. He had no speech. He simply took a deep breath, looked at the audience, and said, "Thank you, but this isn't mine. It's Luz's." She reminded me that I still knew how to listen. Total silence. Sometimes, when the world turns its back on you, the only sound that saves you is the heartbeat next to yours. And that's what I found in her. He stepped down with nothing more. The ovation was long, very long. The images spread across the country. The next day, the video of his speech had over 10 million views. The headlines were euphoric. Dignity on horseback. One man. One mare. A national lesson. Luz, the animal that awakened a conscience. But not everyone was happy. In a glass tower high above the city, Eduardo Santamaria watched the news with clenched teeth. On the screen, Joaquín embracing Luz, people applauding, the media repeating his name. He had tried to ignore it. He had pretended it didn't matter. But it did matter. Too much. Every time he saw that horse, he remembered the day he gave it away as a mockery. Every time he heard Joaquín, he felt the world was showing him his worst reflection. That night, in his office, Eduardo made a call. "I need you to dig up information on that animal, veterinary history, origin, everything. For what purpose? I want to prove that horse is worthless, that it's an illusion." Silence on the other end. "Sir, I don't think that's a good idea. I don't pay you to think." But the world had already chosen. A week later, Joaquín and Luz were invited to a national exhibition in Valencia, not as competitors, as the closing act, a symbol. The venue was packed. In the stands, entire families with signs, "Go, Luz," "Thank you, Joaquín," "Real inspiration," and among the crowd, Lucas, with his father, with tears in his eyes. Joaquín rode with his usual calm. The arena was flawless. Luz moved forward as if floating. The jumps were smooth, the turns exact. Every step was a statement. We are here, not for fame, not for revenge, but because we can. When they finished, there was no music, only applause, long, standing, and shouts. "Maestro, legend, thank you." That night, the news didn't talk about politics, nor football, nor scandals, only about them. And for a moment, the world believed again. The lights of the event were still flickering in the country's memory when Eduardo Santamaria reappeared. No longer silent, no longer in the shadows. This time, with a strategy. He organized a press conference. He summoned journalists, lit up cameras, and smiled as if he still held control. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, adjusting his watch, "the time has come to tell my side of the story. Because behind every viral phenomenon, there are usually truths left untold." In the background, a screen projected frozen images of Joaquín with Luz. Eduardo walked in front of them, like an actor on his stage. "I was the one who rescued that horse from an illegal breeding farm. It was doomed, worthless. It was an act of compassion, a calculated pause. And yes, I gave it to someone who, I thought, needed company. I never imagined he would use it to fabricate a persona." A tense murmur swept through the room. "I am not here to attack anyone, but as a citizen, I have the right to protect my name, and if necessary, I will resort to legal measures to recover what is mine." A journalist raised his hand. "Are you saying the horse Luz still belongs to you?" "That's correct," Eduardo nodded. "I have documents, proof that it was part of a temporary donation, conditional." "And Joaquín Marquez?" "Admirable work, no doubt, but he cannot appropriate an animal outside the proper legal framework." The cameras captured everything, and the internet exploded. Joaquín was in the barn when he saw the video. He didn't react immediately. He didn't even frown. He simply turned down the volume, walked to Luz. The mare, as always, raised her head calmly. "Looks like he wants to fight again," he murmured, resting his forehead against her neck. "But you are not a trophy. You are not merchandise. You are living history." The response didn't take long. Online, thousands of users voiced their outrage. Ors, lose, is not for sale, or with Joaquín, Santa Maria, out influencers, journalists, actors, even professional riders, all expressed support. A famous veterinarian posted, "As a specialist, I declare that Luz is not only in optimal condition, but her recovery is the result of months of exceptional care. To deny, that is to deny reality itself." A well-known actress wrote, "Santa Maria mocks those who believe in redemption. Luz is not just a horse, she's a lesson." And Joaquín, the teacher the country didn't know it needed. But Eduardo did not stop. He sent a legal notice, a formal order, present papers regarding the animal's ownership, and a warning. If it wasn't resolved, he would proceed with a lawsuit. The lawyer who delivered the document was young. When he saw Joaquín, he lowered his gaze. "I'm sorry, Mr. Marquez. I'm just doing my job." Joaquín nodded, took the envelope, didn't open it. "Do you own a horse?" he suddenly asked. The young man looked at him, confused. No, sir." "You should. They teach more than the law." The night fell heavy. Joaquín sat beside Luz as so many times before. No fire, no radio, only the murmur of the wind between the trees. He was thinking, not about losing, not about fighting. He was thinking about her, about how she had come, about everything she meant now, and for the first time in a long while, he felt fear. Not for himself, for her. The next morning, the phone of the journalist who had covered his story rang. "Joaquín wants to talk," said a voice. "One last time." "With an interview?" "No, just a camera, one sentence." Hours later, the video was online. Joaquín, standing with Luz by his side. He looked straight into the lens. "They can't take away what we've already saved," he said, "because we didn't save a horse. We saved hope." And he left. Nothing more, nothing less. The video lasted only 11 seconds, but it was enough. Joaquín's words struck like stakes in the hearts of thousands. "They can't take away what we've already saved." It was more than a phrase. It was a banner, a declaration. Within hours, it became a national motto. What we already saved appeared on walls, on T-shirts, in alleyway graffiti, and on banners outside the Palace of Justice. Young people tattooed it on their skin. Grandparents wrote it in letters. Mothers repeated it to their children. The country, wounded by years of cynicism and mistrust, had found in that silent man and his horse a cause worthy of defending. But in the offices of power, the war continued. Eduardo Santamaria hired one of the most prestigious law firms. The lawsuit was made official. It argued that the horse had been given without legal transfer of ownership, and that its current value, boosted by media exposure, exceeded 200,000 euros. The case was to be heard in a civil court in 3 weeks. Joaquín was summoned. The press speculated endlessly. Can the millionaire take away from Joaquín what he built with love? A horse, a country divided. The final battle, dignity versus money. Meanwhile, the barn filled with support. Anonymous donations arrived by mail, food, equipment, envelopes with money, letters. Some came in person. They wanted to see Luz, to touch Joaquín, to give thanks. But he remained the same, silent, steadfast, working with the mare every day, as if the world weren't burning around him. One afternoon, an old acquaintance showed up unannounced. Don Alvaro, his mentor, the horse trainer who had introduced him to taming when Joaquín was just a teenager. "I saw you on television, boy," he said, stepping down from his truck. "You're thinner, older, but your eyes are the same." Joaquín hugged him without a word. "I came to tell you something," the old man continued. "That mare, she isn't an ordinary animal. She has something that can't be trained, and so do you." "Thank you, Don Alvaro?" "Don't thank me. Listen, don't lose her. Not out of pride, not out of fear, not for anything." "I'll do what I have to do." Don Alvaro looked at him seriously. "Then get ready, because the world is not made for those who refuse to sell what they love." The night before the trial, Joaquín didn't sleep, neither did Luz. They stayed in silence together, as always. The air was tense, as if the darkness itself knew what was coming. On social media, the pressure grew. Hundreds of thousands demanded that the trial be canceled, that the state intervene, that the horse be declared a national living heritage. But the law doesn't listen to likes, and money never sleeps. The day arrived. Civil Court, Main Hall. Joaquín, in his dark jacket and black boots, walked in alone. Without famous lawyers, without cameras, without makeup. Eduardo, in a navy blue suit, 3 advisors behind him, and a measured smile, awaited on the other side. The judge took his seat. The case began. First hour, legal arguments, documents, dates. Second hour, witnesses, veterinarians, specialists. Third hour, videos. Images of Luz's initial state, her transformation, the exhibitions, the national ovation. And then the judge asked for something unusual. "I want to hear the animal." No one understood. "I want to see how she behaves with each of you. Here, now." Silence filled the courtroom. "Can you bring the horse, Mr. Marquez?" Joaquín nodded. Outside the courthouse, Luz was waiting. He brought her into the center. He didn't say a word, just released the rope. Luz stayed by his side. The judge looked at Eduardo. "Step closer, please." Eduardo did. He extended his hand. The mare pulled back, turned her head, searched for Joaquín's eyes, and walked back to him. The judge saw everything. He made a note and closed the hearing. The verdict will be delivered in 24 hours. That night, Joaquín returned to the barn. He turned on the old radio. For the first time in a long time, music played. The next day, the country held its breath. Outside the courthouse, a crowd was waiting, not with signs, not with shouts, just with presence. Silent, heavy, dozens of people, then hundreds, then thousands. Parents with children, elderly with canes, young people with guitars, all still, all steadfast. Inside, Joaquín sat on the same bench as always, alone, with clean hands, looking straight ahead. Eduardo arrived minutes later, impeccable, with his entourage, with the confidence of someone who has never truly lost anything. The judge entered on time. "Gentlemen, I have reviewed the documentation, the testimonies, the facts, and I have seen with my own eyes what no one could deny." Pause. The animal in question, identified as Luz, was handed over without a contract, without explicit terms, without any formal intention of recovering ownership. The law therefore recognizes this as a full act of donation. Eduardo shifted uneasily. Furthermore, the judge continued, the transformation of said animal, its current and symbolic value, cannot be separated from the figure of Mr. Joaquín Marquez. The relationship between them goes beyond any logic of possession. Another pause. Therefore, this court rejects the lawsuit of Mr. Eduardo Santamaria. A murmur spread like lightning, and declares that the mare Luz belongs legally, ethically, and symbolically to Joaquín Marquez. There were applauses, cries, tears. Eduardo left without looking back. Joaquín, on the other hand, remained still. He only lifted his gaze toward the judge and nodded. That very afternoon, he returned to the barn. But it was no longer a refuge. It was a sanctuary. Lucas was waiting at the entrance with his old bicycle. "Did we win?" "We won," said Joaquín, caressing Luz. Days went by, and then weeks. Luz was declared an animal cultural heritage. Her sale, export, or commercial use was prohibited without explicit authorization. Joaquín was invited to speak at schools, universities, congresses. He said little, but every word was worth gold. One day, while walking through the fields, Lucas asked, "Mr. Joaquín, will you compete again?" Joaquín smiled. "I already competed against the only thing that mattered." "Against who?" "Against oblivion." And so ended the story that didn't seem like a story. A man, a mare, a country watching, and a profound silence where before there had only been noise. If you also believe that dignity cannot be bought, subscribe, leave your like, and share this story. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if the system tried to take away the only thing that gave you your life back?